Hello world, the title of this video about this being the final track. It's not really clickbait or rage bait or anything like that. It's just because I came across a question on Reddit the other day where somebody asked, what is your favourite final track on an album? Which led me to think about final tracks in general, what their function is, and really how albums have traditionally been laid out. And it also then led me to think about, when do we want a band to shut up? Sounds rude, probably is, but it's all meant in the best possible taste. And yeah, I don't mean anything horrible by it. So yeah, let's just start out with what I said some of my favourite tracks were. Not all of these did I mention in my post. I can talk quicker than I can type, believe it or not. But one of them was Joan Armatrading's Tall in the Saddle. How are albums laid out? The first track that you hear is like the band saying, "This is us." Either we're new and this is what we sound like, hi guys, or this is what we've got for you this time. Joan Armatrading had had a couple of albums out by this time, and she introduced us to her group and the Glyn Johns sound, as it were, Glyn Johns being the producer, with Down to Zero and that gorgeous piano solo that opens it up, and that whacks you into it, and like, this is one of the best songs we've got for you. And then we get to the end of side one, where we've got a gorgeous ballad called Save Me. And if you really didn't want to listen on from there, let's say you've got your intended with you, someone that's turned your eye, and you're sitting on the couch whispering sweet nothings to one another. Let me count the ways in which I love thee. And Save Me is playing, and the record just carries on spinning in the groove, because we can't be bothered to get up and turn it over. And Save Me would leave you with an absolutely fantastic taste in your mouth, even if you hadn't been bothered to switch it over to side two. Join the Boys. It's not one of my favourite Joan Armatrading songs, actually, but it's still quite a pronounced entrance into a new set of music. And then it finishes with Tall in the Saddle. And Tall in the Saddle is this magnificent work of art that shows us at our best songwriting, best playing, best virtuoso, best solo. And it's about 6 minutes long. 6 or 7 minutes long, and it's amazing. And just when you think it's finished, there's another kick into it, and it comes back in just to slam the message home. It's amazing. And she did a similar thing with Kissing and a Hugging on the next album, which was the Show Some Emotion LP. And that Tall in the Saddle and Kissing and a Hugging are still highlights of her live set today. Just absolutely amazing. So to kind of to cap off, you know, the first and last of each side are really the statement tracks on most LPs. So go through your albums and see, you know, what is. But that final song there, that's the thing that, you know, wants to blow the thing home, that wants to make you turn it over and play it again. Or what's the next, another Joan Armatrading album I can play? That's the power of the ending track. Another one of my favourite ending tracks, I haven't listened to it for ages actually, it's on James Taylor's Sweet Baby James. And it's called Suite for 20G. Another tumultuous, rhythm and bluesy kind of, you know, James Taylor's very folky and sort of twee and whatever. But Suite for 20G is a powerhouse. Another of my favourite final tracks. Where is he? Eddie de Pretto. Showed you this album, must have been about a year ago now. Heureux, it's called, down there. Heureux, with a massive great smiley face. And I talked at length in a video a couple of years ago about why that song really resonated with me when I first heard it. And I had to translate it out of French and into English. And the work of doing that, not just clicking on Google Translate, which might or might not give you a good translation, but the work behind it actually then brought tears to my eyes, because when you can't communicate with something and then suddenly, bling, you can, you know, for me, it releases a little bit of the old tear ducts, you know. The idea that in amidst all of this chaos and destruction and horridness on this world, there are things that are supposed to make us happy, and that, you know, perhaps we can feel a little bit looked after, and I adore it. It's very nice. Another of my favourite tracks, and this is where we're starting to get into my gripes about when the bands know when to shut up. Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. The final track on here, Listen, is just the most celestial, heavenly, divine piece of work that goes on and on and on, and it has this dum 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 dum, and it just does not want to stop. Sort of heavenly voices. I don't know if it is Kate Bush singing, but it sounds like that there is someone who is sort of in that vein, putting these very, you know, imagine Great Gig in the Sky, but not Great Gig in the Sky, just but in that vein on that song, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And while we've got you here, you can see the track listing here. Powerful. Hello folks, we're back. Mother's Talk. We're on the planet rock and roll here. This is quite a virtuoso-y kind of song. Loads and loads of bits going on in here. It even plays out into the plastic run-out groove that would normally just be reserved for the Matrix number, but it just doesn't stop. And then I Believe, beautiful ballad, excellent showcase of Kurt Smith's singing, and as I said, this song Listen at the end, which is just an amazing heavenly piece of work here. You don't want anything to come after that. Here's another album where you just don't want anything to come after it. This is Secrets of the Beehive, David Sylvian, 1987. It's probably, if you think, oh, David Sylvian's a bit of a weirdo, if you want something that is a bit more palatable and a bit more accessible, this is probably the most accessible solo album that he's ever done. This finishes with a song called Waterfront. It's beautiful. I don't need to say it's beautiful, it just is. I've spent a good deal of my life living on the coast, and I do like a good look out to sea occasionally when I'm in the mood, seeing what's beyond and what's out there, and where can I get to, as it were, where do my horizons kind of stretch out to. And he's sort of doing the same, but he's feeling really miserable. On the waterfront, the rain is pouring in my heart. Hear the memories come in waves, raking in the lost and found of years. And then, just as the song comes right to a close, is our love strong enough? Now, as record companies began to invest more in the CD, I made a couple of videos about the music industry pooping itself. One of the things that was supposed to save the music industry from the oil crisis of the 70s and the fact that vinyl was getting more and more expensive, people could afford to buy less, was the CD. But not all record companies were entirely convinced. They didn't want the customers to have the extra expense of buying what was going to be a very expensive machine. The original CD players were projected to cost about £400 at a time where you could get a Riga record player for £90 odd in the early 80s. Same thing with the dual auto changer, was about the same price. Yeah, and so not all record companies got behind it. So a lot of CDs got released just as they were. One of the concerns that the industry had about the CD was that it was capable of holding about 74 minutes of music, and most albums were 25 minutes aside at max, so about 50 minutes, and that consumers would therefore be paying for essentially 25 minutes of silence. It's a bit stupid, really. It's not a coherent argument, in my opinion. But one of the things that helped get all of the record companies behind it was when certain record companies decided that if they could perhaps make a record such as this and slip the odd bonus track on it. This wasn't released on CD till about 1990-ish, by the way. So I'd spent 3 years or so getting used to the final track being Waterfront. And what they did was put a bonus track on the end of it. I hate bonus tracks. I didn't realise at the time that I hated bonus tracks because it just wasn't a thing. You bought the album as was. There's none of all this bonus extras and deluxe editions and stuff like that. You just bought the album as it was. But I've come to hate the bonus track. Yes, the bonus track in David Sylvian's case was the vocal version of his and Ruchi Sakamoto's Forbidden Colours from the film Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. It was fine. Great. Loved it. But it spoilt that last little bit of mood. Imagine the outrage that there would be if, after the final piano chord and bit of babbling gibberish, somebody put another song after A Day in the Life on a CD for a bonus track. It would be absolutely outrageous. And in fact, this is why we've had to wait so long for some of these remixes, because George Martin could have been fairly radical in what he did to the original Beatles albums when he remastered them for CD. But he didn't. What he did was very gentle. He did what was necessary in order to get it to sound like the Beatles on a CD. Very, very little really changed. I played this on Apple Music the other day, just because I felt like it. Believe it or not, sometimes I do a bit of housework. I thought, yeah, oh God, it's got a few bonus tracks on it, so I'll remember to stop it after listen. But I was getting involved with whatever it was I was doing, and this thing just kept on and on playing. We got to the end of listen, and then I remembered that there were a few crappy B-sides of the singles that were a bit weird and not on the album, but suddenly we're getting those. Then we're getting all the demos. We got Everybody Wants to Rule the World, I think, with the Radio 4 shipping forecast mixed in. God knows what was going on there. How on earth that happened. And it just went on and on and on. Then we got a few quite good live tracks, and it went on and on and on and on. And by the end of it, I did not want to listen to Tears for Fears for a very long time indeed. In fact, I didn't even get to the end of it. I just thought, God, this is not going to stop, is it? And when I looked, if there's about 6 different deluxe bonus CDs worth of material that now come with this album. Don't! How about leaving us with the impression that Tears for Fears was somehow good? Of course, let's have a live album. Tears for Fears were fantastic live. And they toured relentlessly in the mid-80s. So, of course, we want a live album. But give us it as a separate album. But I think what is happening is that this thing called Spotify is ruining music. It's ruining the final track. The final track. Because Spotify is essentially one big advertising machine. It's a bit like Heart FM, but hopefully without, I've never used Spotify, hopefully you don't get the moronic DJs, but you still get the moronic adverts. It's still horrifically loudness ward. New songs that are released on Spotify have to conform to set track lengths. So you might get, for example, blues or pop or folk or whatever, and within those genres they have to conform to a specific mould that is consistent with everything else. It's one reason why a lot of songs nowadays are only 2 or 3 minutes long. Because in between adverts, you've got to have room for like so many songs. As I say, I've never used Spotify. I've had other people, I've known other people who've used it. I've listened to it, as it were. But myself, I've never used it. But you get about 3 or 4 different songs, and then you've got adverts. And then you've got the same amount of music and more adverts. And as the music progresses, especially if you let it choose it for you, this is, it's just another thing that, for me, I don't want something choosing my music for me. That actually puts me on edge. That winds me up. I don't want to listen to the radio because I've just enjoyed a fantastic song that you've played. Then I've had to put up with a moronic DJ, then an advert, and then I've got a song that I absolutely hate. And it puts me on edge. It actually winds me up. I'd much rather choose my music. I'm in the mood for that album today. So if you choose a playlist on Spotify, you are going to get advertised to. Let's say you're in a miserable mood and you want music to reflect your miserable mood. There's nothing wrong with being in a miserable mood, by the way. So that's Paul Weller on the Paris Match, which is on the Café Bleu LP by the Style Council, who sang, "I'm only sad in a natural way. I enjoy sometimes feeling this way." So if you've got a playlist that kind of resonates with your sad mood, put it together yourself. Because what Spotify will do is that they will start you out with the most miserable thing ever. The most miserable piece of music that you can ever think of. It's probably been done by Patrick Wolf. And as the half an hour, 3/4 of an hour of music progresses with adverts in between, it will be gradually lightening your mood. The songs will get ever more cheerful by degrees, so you don't really notice it. And then suddenly there'll be an advert for, let's say, Coca-Cola. Doesn't have to be Coca-Cola. And then there'll be the most absolute stonking song ever. And you will associate the song that puts you in a better mood with the advert that you've just heard, or the advert that you're just about to hear, which could well be Coca-Cola. So in that sort of way, outlets like Spotify, who rely on advertising, are ruining music. It's nothing new. As I've said, it's been done for decades by the independent local radio stations, the Capitals and Hearts, and back in the day, what was it, Radio Orwell in Ipswich, and oh my goodness, God, that's taking me back, shut up. And the thing is, the algorithms don't ever want you to stop clicking, because that is their bread and butter. Every song that you allow playing on there, A, gets the artist an absolute nth of a pence. It is slave labour. But it also gets an advert to you, and it's the advertisers that are paying for this thing. Remember, Spotify is not a music platform, it's an advertising platform. And companies like Apple Music, which also have an online streaming model, just a few pounds a month, suddenly takes those adverts away. But because everybody's making their songs now in a format that Spotify will accept, we still get it on Apple Music. And Apple Music doesn't rely on adverts at all. So you have to pay a subscription, but that subscription is about a third of the price of one of these vinyl LPs behind me. Just a way of finishing this video is to say, take control. Take back control of your music. Don't let an algorithm decide what you want to hear. Don't let yourself take for granted the fact that pop stars do actually plan albums, and obviously classical stars do actually plan sets and performances for you, because that's how they want you to hear them. Obviously, the more you play of a specific artist, the more money they will get, which is their incentive to have 6 CD bonus sets, for example. And as I say, I don't think it does anyone any good, because there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Remember to like, subscribe, share if you dare, consider a super thanks. And if you really have enjoyed listening to this video, I would be very grateful for some comments down the bottom as to what your favourite albums are that have brilliant ending tracks and what they actually are. That would be really great. Thank you. That helps me out, by the way. A wee comment, a wee click, a wee comment, that pushes it up in the YouTube algorithm. Then other people might want to add their own opinions as well, and gets me a few pence. All right, see you later. Bye.